Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Tim Exile's Practice Notes. So I want to talk about life stories, and at the back end of this video I'm basically going to tell my life story through a friend's eyes. So a little bit of backstory to this. One of the main inspirations for starting the Practice Notes channel was an event that I went to about a month ago now. My friend Will Evans, who was once the CEO of Spitfire and now has started his own company called Song Athletics. They do, really lovely sample libraries and a bunch of other stuff. And he's got a really cool ethos to what he's doing. And he runs this event once every 3 months down in South London. It's a very intimate event where he just invites somebody to speak. And on this occasion, he basically put together some slides of my life story as he saw it. He showed me these slides and interviewed me, and it was a very emotional experience. And it was also a very liberating experience. And the thing that came out of it was that throughout all the ups and downs and all the twists and turns of everything I've done, the through line through it is this practice. It's about, I've always been driven by the doing, this sort of ceaseless creative process. And when you look back at it, it sort of weaves, it weaves a story. And looking back at that story, for me, looking back at my story, particularly through the eyes of a friend, I felt like I'd learned so much about myself from that process. And I think, particularly as we get older, when you're young, when you're in your early 20s or you're a teenager, it's much easier to kind of define yourself by your future you, like who you're going to be, and you have all these possibilities, and you don't have, your life probably feels relatively linear up until that point. But when you start to get older and you realize that your ideas of what you want to be generally don't turn out to happen the way that you wanted them to happen, and that sort of keeps on happening. And actually, the older you get, the more you learn from your past, or at least the more you learn from the sort of delta, the difference between what you thought was going to happen and what actually happened. I certainly find, like, now for me, it gives me a much greater sense of my identity, a sense of security, a sense of, belonging to something. I somehow belong to this meat sack that's done a bunch of weird shit and has succeeded and failed. And I sort of derive more of a sense of maybe solace from just like, oh yeah, this is, I've done all this stuff. And somewhere in the line that draws all those weird things up is a Tim. So on my Discord server, over the last week or so, I've been kind of refactoring my Discord server. So if you're a patron, you can get into my Discord server. That's one of the perks of being, well, if you're a supporter or an adventurer on Patreon, you get access to my Discord server. And there's a lovely little community of people there. And in light of this, and in light of beginning the Practice Notes series, I've been sharing a bit about my life story on Discord and encouraging other people to do it. And it's amazing just reading, like, telling your own story is amazing for you, and I think it's amazing for other people as well. It's a great experience, and I've learned so much about a handful of people on Discord who really went deep on telling their life story, and it's a real cheat code to friendship. Like, I feel so much closer to these friends on Discord now, just from hearing their life stories. So I think it's something really valuable to do. Something that people probably don't know so much about me is that I spent a long time in the kind of early 2010, like 2010 to 2015, well, eventually training for ordination into a Buddhist order. It started with meditation, and then I really I got really deeply involved at the London Buddhist Centre. Towards the end of it, I started going on a lot of retreats. The ordination training retreats they're quite hardcore. I mean, they really do up the level of practice and the amount of meditation you do and all the ritual, but then lots of kind of group work as well. And one of the things they're really big on there is telling life stories. So you'll be on a retreat, it'll be 2 weeks long, you'll have a group of say 5 or 6 people, and you'll be with once a day, you'll meet up with that same group. And one of the things you'll do throughout that is like everybody will have a session, like a 1 or 2 hour session to tell their life story. And again, it's so powerful. It's so stirring, both telling your own story and listening to other people's stories. And I'll probably talk more about this as the series evolves. Yeah, I'll say more at some point about why I ended up not getting ordained. There's a lot to unpack in that. But the spiritual path and the creative path, taken to their illogical conclusion, they're both pretty much the same thing. I mean, the whats and the hows are slightly different, but I think they're both pursuits that sort of open you up to a future self that you never dreamt of somehow. But both this like spiritual practice and creative practice do that. Okay, so now I'm going to dive into these slides. So Will sent me this slideshow. Obviously, spoiler alert, I've seen these slides already, so I kind of know what's coming. I have no idea if I'm going to get as stirred up as I did at the event. But anyway, here goes. 4 slides of Tim. Okay, so slide 1. Well, so this is me earlier on in my career. We've got, I think that photo in the top left, maybe my mid-20s then. It's kind of like mid-20s to mid-30s. There's the Listening Tree, which is the album that I did on Warp. That came out 2009. There's a photo of me playing the Flow Machine, rehearsing with the Heritage Orchestra. This kind of like live sampling thing. And there's a slightly cringeworthy press pic of me with my eyes closed. And there's a photo of me from a video I did with Red Bull ages ago, where they were sort of telling the story of me going around various places, sampling sounds and then making music out of it. When I look at these photos, there's 2 very clear paths that I was on throughout this period. There was this very kind of aspirational, the guy who wanted to be on Warp Records. I just wanted to be on Warp Records because that was like the best label to be on. And that was kind of leading my kind of production chops guy. Pro Tools was my thing. I know it's like so dated now. It was what I was using. I got really into micro editing. It would take me weeks to make a track. I wasn't slacking either. I was really just going into the minutest detail. I just wanted to make the perfect music because I wanted to be signed to the perfect label in the hope that it would somehow make me a perfect human. Which it really didn't. 2009, when that album came out, pretty much the moment I signed the contract, I sort of like turned around to them and said, what do I do now? And they were like, well, usually when artists sign to us, they come with a really clear creative vision. And my creative vision was just to be released by Warp. I'm not completely dismissing my production chops then, but I was just trying to be something that I wasn't. I thought, I'm going to need to sing on this album. So I tried to write songs and, honestly, I was just a shit songwriter. Yeah, I was a good electronic music producer and I probably should have stuck to a bit of that and then do like the other side of it, which was just making crazy reactor things. And it's almost like the photo on the album on the left and the photo on the right is just like the 2 polarities that were fighting for 10 years. Eventually it became obvious that all this live stuff was where my heart was at, and live improvisation and making tools and then latterly kind of selling tools to people, which is probably a good point to go to the next slide. This is the last 10 years, 2015 till, well, last year. For those of you who don't know me and don't know what I've done before, like specifically what I was doing was I was using this kind of visual programming environment called Reaktor, which is basically, it's an environment for creating audio applications. And I just got really, really deep into this, and I'm still deep into it. Like 25 years later, I built like entire instruments for playing, improvising music. I teamed up with Native Instruments, who make this platform, Reaktor, and I turned some kind of like bits of things that I'd made. We turned those into products. Those products did really well. The first one came out like 2009. It was called The Finger. It's still, if you have Native Instruments Complete, you've got The Finger. It's really fun. It's like a keyboard triggered effect. Still, you can still buy it on Native Instruments as well if you don't have Complete. Then I did The Mouth the year after that, and that did really well. The Mouth was a sort of voice synth, vocoder, kind of hard tune effect, and that came out 2010. And the video for that went mega viral. And so the product did really well. Basically gave me a bunch of cash, which I then ploughed into Endless, which was, I'd been working on the idea for a very long time. The sort of seeds of the project go right back to like 2005 when I started building some of the instruments for improvising with. I wanted to turn this thing into a platform. In fact, when I was working with Native Instruments, building products like The Finger and The Mouth, and then also Flesh, which came out in 2015, which is on this slide. The founders of Native Instruments, very good friends of mine, and I was talking to them a lot about like, let's make this platform. It's all about like live performance and live looping. And, you know, we kind of almost got there in some ways, but by the time everybody else in the company had like fed back into it, just like, no, we think we should either like make this a feature of Traktor, which is their DJing software, or Maschine, which is their kind of like drum machine sequencer DAW platform. And then I was like, oh no, I want to go and do this thing. I've got a really clear vision for how a platform like this should be and how it should work. So I kind of set out on the founder path, put all my money into it, and eventually all my money ran out. Then went to raise money from investors. The deeper I got in there, the more complicated, the more high pressure the whole venture, you know, it really turned into a venture. I don't know, it's weird because the thing that I wanted to do, it was very pure in many ways. Well, I believed in the experiences that I'd had playing these instruments that I'd made. And I believed in the feedback that I was getting from people. You know, when I showed people these machines, and when I played live, and particularly when I did demos where I kind of explained how it worked, and people were just like, what? That's amazing. Like, I want to be able to do this. I kind of put all of that information together to kind of like synthesize this very pure idea that like, okay, I'm going to make this platform. You know, I expect this to be massive. So, you know, I'm going to put all the money that I've made into this and put together a team. And, yeah, and then we ran out of money. Then I had to find investors, and then we got all sorts of different kinds of funding. I mean, and like as the project went on, it became, you know, because I'm kind of a good boy, as in when I make promises to people, like it means a lot to me to like try and come through on those promises, or like to go to the ends of the earth to make those promises happen. When you're in the situation where you've taken on a bunch of investment, you've really sold people on a grand vision, and those people have bought in and they've given you money, you know, like tens of thousands of dollars individually, then you really feel like, I felt this like, oh my God, I have to do everything. Basically, long and short, we just never managed to hit the kind of scale that it needed to hit that lift-off point. That's what startups need. Most investors who invest early on invest because it's a passion project, and they sort of believe in me, they believed in the story, and maybe this is going to be massive one day. The dark side of entering this world is that the only way that everybody gets made whole is if you sell the freaking company. Usually the company that buys that company is a company that's already hoovered up a lot of value from other places, and this is a whole world of like private equity. We see this like eating up the music tech world, right? And anyway, there's a lot to unpack there. I think I'll call it a day there. By the time it got to what happens on the next slide, things were getting very, very stressful. Me and my partner had twin girls born. They're now almost exactly 2.5 years old now. And then this happened at the actual event with Will, because I didn't know this slide was coming. I just broke down. It's still so raw. It still even feels a bit raw now, even though I knew this slide was coming. But it all went very, very wrong last year. I mean, it kind of started in 2023, really. So 4 months after our girls were born, I started getting weird symptoms. This story is told much more succinctly in another video that's on this channel, so I'll link to that video in the description. But in a nutshell, I was diagnosed with bladder cancer in the middle of that year. At first they were just like, oh, it's fine, we'll whip it out. Went for surgery to have it removed. The doctor was like, no, it's bad. We think it actually might be really bad. And so there was this like horrible period where I was just like, I don't know if I'm going to be around in a year or two's time. While that was going on, the company, it was really on a knife edge. We were looking to find a way just to stay alive. I have absolutely no doubt at all that my cancer has pretty much everything to do with just the level of stress that I was under, trying to fulfill the promises that I'd made, and to kind of like both fulfill the promises I'd made and somehow make something of this thing that I really believed in, that felt like my life's work. Also, at the same time, my dad was on his last legs. Later in the year, I had a second surgery. They looked back and they're just like, yeah, tumour's grown back, because they thought they'd removed the tumour. They were just like, yeah, okay, you're going to have major surgery to remove your bladder and your prostate. I got that news in November, and then I had some worrying scans where they were worried that it had spread to some lymph nodes, which would have mean like, yeah, okay, it's metastasized. And I got that news in the December that year, and then my dad died in December that year. The company it was a real code red situation, and we were starting to look for people who might buy it. The whole thing is such a blur. I ended up actually delaying my surgery by 6 weeks because I was trying to get a good outcome for the company. Anyway, it didn't work out, as probably many of you who are watching this now, if you're still watching now, know that it didn't work out. I had some amazing people come to help me. My friend Justin, like 5 days before I was due to go for this major surgery. I mean, this is my major surgery. I was on the operating table for 7.5 hours. The anaesthetic was just unreal. It was diamorphine, ketamine, fentanyl, and propofol. I mean, it was like proper. It was hardcore. But there was this mad flurry 5 days before. I was just like, this isn't landing. We're not going to get this into a good place. I'm going to be out of action for months. Called on my friend Justin, who was amazing, and I'm still just incredibly grateful to him to this day. And my sister as well was amazing. And basically, my sister and Justin took over and basically like flew the plane into the ground while I was having surgery. And they were so great. They didn't even tell me, because they were trying, we had a bunch of deals on the table for like people who might buy the company, and it looked like maybe it was going to be okay. And anyway, it wasn't. Everything fell apart. I remember, I think it was maybe 2 weeks after my surgery. Basically, they put these stents in into your like kidney, the sort of urethra pipes from your kidney, into this stoma. So you basically got these little plastic pipes to stop them closing up and healing over. So I'd been to have these removed. Removing those stents caused this like almost like a kind of septic attack. This was just beginning to happen. Like I was exhausted, you know, couldn't get out of bed, and suddenly I was having this like crazy fever, and then I got the call saying it's over. That evening, I had to go to A&E to be readmitted to hospital, having had that news. That was a dark hour. That was the darkest hour ever. And you know, A&E is, you know, it's a mess in the UK. So I didn't actually get admitted to a bed until 7 in the morning. And yeah, it was a very dark hour. I can't even explain it. Because also, like, I'd put all my money into this, and I'd not taken a salary for months. Like we had no money. We had no way to pay the mortgage. We were just toast on every level. But anyway, a couple of weeks later, my sister put together a GoFundMe campaign, and this most amazing outpouring of love and generosity, which I still find hard to comprehend even. I mean, as a sort of Brit, it's like uplifting, incredibly uplifting, but also so almost incredibly embarrassing as well. But then also realizing, yeah, that was the only option we had, and like thank God that there are platforms like GoFundMe now that got us through, and that sort of bought some time for me to heal, and bought some time for what's in the next slide, which is kind of this is the final slide. And this really is the sort of bounce back. And I still feel so grateful to everybody who backed the GoFundMe, because, you know, this bounce back is really sponsored by you. There's not really any other way to put it. Yeah, I've had to make money out of this bounce back. I mean, that's another sort of weird thing after everyone's been so generous. You know, I'm still like, basically it bought us like 6 months, and that 6 months is over now. But, you know, it gave me like just enough leeway to go back to doing what I love, which is building tools, building systems for doing music. Because of what happened last year was so dramatic. I mean, you couldn't, if you wrote that into a novel, people would be like, you know, the editor would send the manuscript back and say like, no, mate, you've got to tone it down a bit. And somehow it feels like there's a gift somewhere in that, having to be so public about it as well, because we were, you know, financially screwed. You know, if I'd had a couple of $100,000 lying around as a sort of rainy day fund, I just would have disappeared for a couple of years and not really told anyone about anything. But because I had to be so public about it, which kind of plays into the kind of guy I am. I mean, you know, harking back to the earlier slides where I was like limelight seeking by wanting to be signed by Warp. Like I still am a limelight seeker, even though I would have preferred not to have to seek the limelight by telling people how fucked my life was. But being so public about that has somehow, like, kind of limelight seeking has been purified in some kind of way. This is the sort of great lesson. It's just like, okay, limelight seeker, go and seek some limelight for being in an absolute mess, rather than being an absolute, rather than trying to be some kind of mega hero. Yeah, it's weirdly very, very orienting that all of that happened, that I got this like little 6-month window to shoot my best shot at going back to what I love doing. And, you know, I've lost so much. I'm probably the best part of $500,000 down on Endless. Like that, and that's everything. You know, that's not like I have some other pot. That was everything. And, you know, a bunch of other people are, you know, some are hundreds of thousands of dollars down. So a lot was lost there. A lot of my pride was lost, but then a lot of my brittleness died as well. How the fuck can you continue to be brittle when you're the other side of that massive cluster of events? Yeah, it almost feels like going back to gardening. What I'm doing now, I'm kind of doing what I did in my 20s, but I don't have any of that sort of those grand aspirations. I don't feel like I'm looking to be validated by anything else outside in the world. I mean, I probably am in some. I mean, of course I am. Of course I look at the numbers. Of course I like see how many people open my mailers, and I check in on how many people are buying things. Well, I mean, it's important because I'm supporting an entire family now, so I do need to get people to buy things. I don't feel like I'm chasing any sort of one great thing to go, yes, Tim, you are a good boy. I still feel like I'm the luckiest guy alive. Before this channel became Tim Excel's Practice Notes, it was called Luckiest Tim Alive. My original plan was to kind of document my journey and sort of spread this message of hope that like things can get really bad, but you can get through it. The idea was that I'd go out in nature and walk and talk in nature and shoot lots of B-roll and edit all these vlogs together, and basically I think I managed to do like 4. Yeah, I didn't manage to keep up with that, but still I still feel like the luckiest guy alive to have got through that and to have had this opportunity to refocus my life and do things like, you know, just look back, like what have I actually done? And I feel that what I'm doing now, it's a collage of everything I have actually done, rather than this kind of like somehow trying to grab something out of the future, a future that is just not real and doesn't exist. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, I'm lucky to be here, lucky to get this second chance. I want to share my learnings. I want to share hope, share my experience, strength, and hope. So that's what I'm doing here on this channel. The learning through all of this is like, keep in touch with your creative practice, keep in touch with what you've done, plot the weird wonky line between all the things you've done, and there you are. You don't need to look to the future to find out who you are. Look at what you've done. The truth of who you are is in that. The great mystery is like, how do you become more that? And it feels like that's the thing I'm chasing now in the second half of my life. So there we go. That's my life story as told through a friend's eyes. Yeah, again, massive thanks to Will Evans for putting these slides together and to sending them over, and to somehow being a kind of shaman on my journey of rehabilitation. I mean, it felt, talking through these slides that I hadn't seen before in front of a bunch of people and then sort of like breaking down, felt like quite a turning point in my rehabilitation. So yeah, thank you for that opportunity. And I hope you can find opportunities to look back over your life story, tell your life story. If you want to join the, my Patreon, come and join the Discord. We're talking about all these kinds of things. We're talking about everything from very deep, very nerdy stuff about specific music tech, right the way through to what it means to have a creative practice, what it means to have a life. Do swing by. Obviously, your support on Patreon is always very appreciated, and I think you'll get something out of it. And if that's not your vibe, then of course I make tools. You can see 2 of them here, Scapeshift and Pattern Shift. Those are up for sale on my shop at timexcel.com. There's a couple of other products up there. They're really fun products. Like, I had a huge amount of fun making them. I've had a huge amount of fun using them, and I know a bunch of other people have as well. So do go and check those out. And yeah, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do subscribe. Obviously, we're not here to run the numbers, but, well, it's like the tail wagging the dog. If you're really just chasing the numbers, it's a tail wagging the dog, but it's still a dog with a tail. So yeah, help wag the tail of the dog by subscribing to my channel. That's enough. See you in the next episode. Oh, there'll also be a response video to all the comments on this. I'll do a response video every week for my patrons on Patreon. Another reason to subscribe to my Patreon. So that video will be coming out in a few days' time on Patreon. See you in the next one. Peace out.